Hey, it's Carrie Canary Quilts, and it's been a while with the Dear Jane Quilt along, and I do apologize. I had an issue with my machine that I use primarily for free motion quilting, and I'm still having an issue. I've taken it 2 different places. I explain that a little later in the video. But I've switched machines. It's going well, so I'm going to start back up again on this and start with row A. But I think a lot of you who have been following me, that I know have been following me, have already quilted theirs. So I still have a few other people who have started up, and hopefully maybe someone in the future will find this beneficial, or maybe you'll find out something new as you're watching this. So I have been using EQ8 with the Dear Jane add-on for the Dear Jane Quilt Along, and that's what I'm going to use for the quilting. And I want to show you how to open the file, how I looked at it, and then how I transferred that quilting over to the quilt. The rest of the video actually will be, I'm going to show you how I quilted the sashing, which I think is optional. I didn't see that anywhere. And if you don't want to do that, you can skip ahead, and then I show you all my materials that I'm using, my machine, and how I'm set up to work, so that you know what to expect to see in future videos. And then I transfer and quilt row A. So that's what you can expect today. And so let's go back to EQ8. Let's open an existing file. And the file we actually need to open now is called DJ4 Quilting Center Blocks Master. Or if you made a copy like they said to do, you can open that one. So we open this, I'm going to hit OK, and it comes right up with the project sketchbook. I'm going to be honest, this is where I stayed. Each of these blocks is set up as a quilt so that it can show the quilting lines, which are these dashed lines. And I just stayed right here in the sketchbook. Let me move you up here, or move me up there. So you can see down here in the left-hand corner, it's block A1. And if you hit the right arrow over here on the bottom right, you can go to the next block, which is A2. So I had my quilt out. I looked at this. It's a lot of stitch in the ditch, and so I just transferred the lines that I needed to transfer, and I use a friction pen that's erasable with heat and a ruler, and I put those lines on, and that's how and then I was able to follow that with my machine. And so then I went to the next one and did the same thing. I do make a few modifications to where some of the lines are as we go along, but that's how I'm doing it. I don't think I need to open these individually and then go back to the sketchbook when I can just hit the right arrow and see what I need to see. If you have a different way of doing it, let me know. I'm wondering if maybe you could print these out and then overlay them on your block, but that just seems like a lot of work. They're 4.5-inch blocks, so and your free motion quilting. I am free motion quilting because I can't turn this big quilt that much to get these straight lines, so I'm using free motion quilting. So anyway, that's how I'm using the EQ8 Dear Jane add-on for the quilting, and I won't be referring back to this while I'm doing that, so you know at least now where I'm coming from to get my quilting lines. All right, so what you can expect in this video is going to be much more than you will in any of the other ones, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through quilting the sashing. And if you're not doing that, you can skip ahead. I'm going to show you the setup for quilting that I have, so that you know where I'm coming from, because everybody has different machines and all that. So at least you know where I'm coming from when you see me getting ready to quilt this. I'm going to have a list of all the materials and accessories I'm using down below if you want to check it out. Then I will be quilting through A1 through A13. And it really doesn't take too long. So this is going to be a much longer video than the ones for the rest of the rows. So just keep that in mind. I appreciate you. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell. Check out the Dear Jane playlist on my YouTube channel. And let's get to quilting. All right, I've actually started working on my Dear Jane quilting. I am sewing in the sashings right here on each side. And I've done all the sashings that are going vertical, and so I need to turn it and do all the sashings that are going horizontal. And then I outlined the whole center of the quilt with stitching. So the back is my background, and you can see this is holding the outside together, but this is the quilting that I've started. It's straight stitch. And then you can see here's the outline of the center, and then this is the sashing right here. So I sandwiched this back in January. I think what I have is Pellin bamboo. I like it because it's very drapey, and it's a little bit thinner. In the last sew sampler, let's see, that would be April, we got some thread, and it was Signature Pima thread, and it's a little bit, it's like ivory color, and so that's what I'm using as my quilting thread. And then in the bobbin, I am using Superior Thread So Fine. It's a 50 weight. And I have a big spool of it, so I've done up, I think, let's see, I've used 3 bobbins already, and I've made that many bobbins. I'll probably need to make a lot more, because I used, well, basically 2.5 in the stitching that I've already done. So, the machine. This is why I haven't started until now, is because I have a Janome 1600, which is a very strong straight stitch machine, and it does really well with quilting, but I took it in to get it fixed. I think it was back in February, and they replaced the needle bar, but when I brought it back, I was still having issues. The needle was hitting the bobbin case, or the bobbin gear, I guess. So I took it to a different person, and they fixed the gear. It does a very nice job of straight stitching, but when I go around a curve, it doesn't stitch at all. And I have tried everything I can think of. I've gone out and watched videos. I replaced my bobbin case because I've used that machine so much, I might have worn it out. Different needles, different positions of threads, different threads, and it's not working, so I need to take it back in, but I need to get started. So I am using my Janome Horizon, which I probably spent about 3 or 4, maybe 5 hours getting this to where I felt comfortable free motion quilting. I just finished a very large quilt, almost as big as this one on it, with virtually no issues, but it took me about that long to dial in my quilting on this machine to make sure I could get started on this and feel comfortable. So this is a Janome Horizon Memory Craft 7700, and I've had it for about 12 years, and this is my primary machine, not usually for free motion quilting, but for everything else. And my setup is, right now, I have a regular bobbin case. I bought a new bobbin case. That seemed to be a real big issue with this. I think that was the biggest issue, is my bobbin case was just worn down. So I bought a new bobbin case. My thread is sitting over here on this type of spool. It seems to work best when I do that. And so right now I am just straight stitching, so it really isn't causing any issues. But when I get to free motion quilting, like I said, I just did a quilt and it's really doing well. And I'll show you what I do then also for free motion quilting, because I have a different bobbin case. But I just wanted to show you what I am working with, the materials I'm using, the machine I'm using, and so you know where I'm coming from as I'm working through this quilt. And I will update you if I get my other machine fixed. I think last year I was free motion quilting and I put a needle literally through my finger. Didn't hit the nail, went in right next to the nail, didn't hit bone, but it did break the needle and I had to pull it out of my finger. And I'm not trying to be gross, but I'm thinking that I must have really messed up my machine when that happened. But when it happened, I was upset by it and I just set my machine aside and I went on to other things and thought, I'll take it in, and just finally 6 months later, pulled it out, tried to use it, and it's just been messed up. So I'm trying to get it fixed because I love that machine. All right, let me show you what I'm doing, how I'm doing the sashing, which is these lines that you see right here. And they're the sashing in between all the blocks. And like I said, I've got all the vertical ones done, so I need to turn it, so I'm doing all the horizontal ones. So what I've done to start with is I'm not going to start on this end of the quilt. I'm going to pull it all the way through, but I've taken the left side of my quilt and I've just kind of rolled it up here and clipped it in place so that I can grab it and keep track of it as I'm moving around with this quilt. And then I've got 2 more clips here that I will use as this starts working its way into the neck of my machine. My machine has a pretty good sized neck. I wish it was taller. And that's the reason I bought it way back when, was because this was very wide. My other machine is even wider than this, but it's not working. Anyway, I am using I call it a stitch in the ditch foot, so that this part right here runs right along my seam, and then the needle comes down inside there where that little notch is. So you can see here, I'm a little off right there, but that's how it's working. I'm going on each side of my seam. What that means is as I go along, I can only do the left side here. And then I'll move it over and I'll do the left side and do the left side until I get halfway over, which I think is 6 rows. And it's really not that hard, but when I get to that point, I'll show you how I do that and maneuver the quilt. Okay, I've got my quilt pulled through the machine, so I'm going to be starting right here at the top of the left side of this sashing. And I've just kind of wadded my quilt up off to the left here the best I can. My table is right here, and I don't want my quilt to get stuck on this part of my table. So I just kind of wad the quilt up to the left and then just hold this section up. I've got it all wadded up here. Hold it up so it doesn't get caught on the table as I go. All right, now that I've got it all wadded up, I'm gonna put my foot down. I'm gonna put a lock stitch in. I didn't mention that I do have it set at a longer stitch. My default stitch on this machine is 2.25 or 2.5, I think. And I have it set at 4, so it is a longer stitch, and I've moved my needle off to the left so it lands in that little notch in my foot. So I'm going to get all of this wadded up as best I can, and I'm just going to guide this through. And also, I have it set almost at the slowest speed on my machine, so that I can press all the way down on my foot and I'm not going to be going very fast, and so I don't have to regulate my stitch with my foot. Alright, so let's do a locking stitch. The other thing is I'm using a Janome 9014 needle. I have my foot mashed down, and you can see it's not going very fast. And I kind of have to pick the quilt up here so it doesn't, because it's heavy and it doesn't get caught on the edge of my table. And I just have to start and stop, help the fabric. And then as I need to, unwind it. So I have my hands positioned over here on the left, just holding the quilt, and on the right holding the quilt, so that I can just guide it through until I need to unwind it some more. And I'm just keeping that part of my foot on that seam right here. So now I can unwind it just a little bit as it's gone a little bit farther and keep going. And you'll just have to figure out what works the best for you in holding your quilt. Also, I don't want my quilt to fall over the other edge of my table, because that will cause tension back here too. I'm trying to keep as little tension as it's going through the machine with the quilt as I can. So now that I'm almost to the end of the row and I don't have much coming up onto my table here, I'm able to put my hand down and keep it so that there's not a lot of tension coming from the left here where the quilt's so heavy. And just steer it into place so that it's following that seam. If it starts to bunch on you, I just kind of lift the foot and loosen up the thread, or loosen up the fabric. And then I stop at this seam allowance right there. Put a lock stitch in. All right, there's my first seam put in right here. So what I'm going to start to do now is I want to start to roll this up, and I'm going to do it as I pull it through. And put that on. And pull it through. And so this is the seam I did. This is the seam I'm going to, the left side of it. All right, so my sashing is right here. And you can see where it is by my cornerstone because there is a lot of white fabric out here, but just make sure you line up with the sashing. I'm going to put it down and I'm going to put a lock stitch in. And I have my needle down, so that when I stop, it comes down in the quilt and I can maneuver better. All right, I just finished my 6 sashing from the right side over, and I'm feeling pretty good about the quilt, so I think I'm gonna do one more. I've just kind of been rolling it up as I'm doing it and clipping it, and it's been working really well. So I think I'll do one more sashing in the middle and then flip my quilt around. I'm just kind of pulling this through, rolling it up a little more, and throwing a clip in it. I've taken all the clips out of the left-hand side because I can handle that now. And there we go. That's what I have going through the neck of my machine. So one more sashing down, and then I'm going to flip it 180 and then start over on this end and work towards the middle. All right, I flipped my quilt around and now I'm starting on the sashing over here, go down the left side until I get to the middle again, and then I'll have to do the other sides. But for now, I'm going to finish the left sides of what's left on these sashings. All right, this is the seam I just finished. Now I need to just keep going to the other side and doing the left-hand side. The right-hand side I've already done. I just need to go across the rest of this quilt and do the left-hand side. So it seems to be working pretty well, wrapping it up and clipping it on this side, and then I can move it over, and the quilt moves really well through the neck of my machine. So I'm going to continue on till I finish to the end of this quilt, and then I've got to come around and flip it over and do the other half of this one, and then I'll be done with the sashing. And the sashing is optional. I don't know that Dear Jane did it. I haven't seen that, but this is something I'm doing in case you want to do it also. I'm showing you how I do it. I'm on the last sashing I'm doing over here, this seam right here, and I just wanted to show you what it looks like with the whole quilt rolled up and going underneath the neck. These clips seem to do really well. So I'm just like throwing the bottom of this quilt over my left shoulder right now and doing my best to guide it down that seam. So you can see the pattern that I'm making with the stitches on the front, where it's going around the cornerstone and on each side of the sashing. So now I just have to turn it around and finish the other half that I have to do, and my sashing will be complete. I just wanted to show you another thing I'm using is this So Steady suspension system that I have around my table. It hooks right to my table. It's very easy to put on. It has these very strong bendable arms on it. There we go. You can bend them, but they are very strong. it's got like this curler type thing that's got a little bit of sticky tape on it, and that's what you put underneath your quilt, like right here. You put it under your quilt, and then you put the clamp on it so it doesn't damage your quilt, and it holds it up out of your way and helps you keep tension off the quilt when you're down here quilting. It comes in a set of 4. Right now I'm using 2, but as you're moving your quilt around, you can move the quilt within these clamps, and it really does help, you know, so you're not having to wad your quilt up, and it doesn't fall off the edge of the table, and I think it works great. And I'm using it in my Dear Jane Quilting, so I just wanted to show you in case you wanted to check it out also. Another thing I wanted to show you was this quilting slider mat. I saw Leah Day using it, and she really liked it, and so she does free motion, a lot of free motion quilting videos. And so I thought I'd give it a try, and it worked great on the last quilt that I quilted. It's very slippery, so your quilt will slide really easy. I had one of these before, but it was not this, and it got dirty and wouldn't stick anymore. But this, you just need to wash it. It says with a baby wipe. But I've seen where people, I think, just wash it, and then the stickiness comes back. So you put the pink side down, and it doesn't move at all. And then there's just the littlest of holes for your where your needle goes down. So I loved it when I used it, and I'm going to use it on this also. But I wanted to let you know about it in case you want to check it out. I'll have a link in the description down below. Okay, before I start quilting, I did mention that I had 2 bobbin cases. The one on the right has a red arrow, and the one on the left has a blue arrow. The red arrow is the one I use mainly for almost everything I do, but the blue arrow one is a low tension bobbin case, and I use that with free motion quilting. And I literally just found that out when I was researching how to calibrate my machine better. And so I had it, I tried it, and it's working great when I free motion quilt. Got my machine set up. I cleaned in the bobbin case, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but there was some fluff in there, and so I'm starting off clean. I've changed to a new needle, another Janome 9014 like I was using. I've got my quilting foot in. I've got my feed dogs down, and it tells me what foot to use, and it sets the stitch length to 0 for me. And then I set my needle position at the default. So I did increase the speed. It was a little too slow for me. We'll see how it goes when I'm actually on the quilt. I've got the same thread that I was using in the same position, so that's where I'm at with my machine. All right, for A1, I've taken my friction pen and just very lightly took a ruler. All the quilting lines for A1 are on the diagonal here, both ways. So I just took my friction pen and lightly drew those lines in. I think what I'm going to do is I'll start down here in this corner, and I'll follow this line all the way up, go down here, come up, and then I can just start following these lines around. I'll probably just figure it out as I go. I can go down here, but I may have to go over a couple lines twice, but that way I don't have to stop either. So let me get started on this and see how it goes. I got my quilting gloves on. My mom gave them to me, and I get frustrated sometimes because I start wearing them and they start sliding down the finger. So I've got these straps for cords that I just wrap around my wrists kind of lightly, and it holds it in place for the most part. You can see that it slips around here pretty good. I don't think I'll be able to turn it. I'll just have to go on the diagonal the best I can. And so I'm going to just start here and start working my way around. So I'm only working on this block, so I shouldn't have too much going on for movement. Could just clip this here. Probably make it loud as I'm moving it around, but shouldn't get caught, hopefully. All right. I'm going to start with a lock stitch right down here in the corner. Now I made it back to the other corner, and I'm just going to go down the side here where I've already stitched and come up here and then come down this other diagonal. And keep following it around. Oh, I think I'll go down the side here and then come back up on this diagonal. I am regulating the stitch with my foot for the most part. I'm not mashing down. And I'm trying to slow up my needle as I move this around where I need to, or speed it up when I can. And there we go. I am going to follow this top seam to the next quilt block. Actually, what I think I'll do right now is I'm going to put a lock stitch in and put an iron on that and see how it looks before I start going on. Here's my block. Just gonna take an iron. And get rid of those lines. So there's my first block quilted. And I like how that went. So I think what I will do is go ahead and mark maybe the next 4 or 5 blocks, and then I can go straight from one block to the next block. So block number 2 has a lot of quilting in it. Quilt lines, I should say. I may not put that many lines in. So the other thing that block 2 has is it's got a square quilting line around here, but the line comes down here. I think what I'm going to do is draw it to a point here and make an entire square. And then you do a crisscross in the middle. And you'll see, if you have EQ8, you'll see this, how it goes. I think it'll make it, for me, a little more symmetrical to do that. So I'm just going to follow the seam. Like that. So I have a square, and right here you'll stitch in the ditch or right next to it, and then we go straight through like this. And then there's quilting lines that come out from here. Now they look like they don't really even split this in half. So I think what I'm going to do is maybe stitch in the ditch here and then come up here and do the same. Just cut this off right here, and then in this corner I personally don't think it needs that much quilting, and it'll be in the vein of Dear Jane. And it will still look very symmetrical. So I have this square here, I'm quilting. I have this square out here, I'm quilting. And then this would be a square, but extended out here. So that's how I'm quilting that one. So this one, the third one, we're just doing lines down the middle. And then we're doing lines like this. So I'm going to line up this, just this line on my ruler with the line I just drew. And I'm just going to make a square. Let's see, let's do it over here. I'm not pressing hard with this, so I can see it. I just want enough ink on there to erase when I'm done, but that I can see it. Okay, so we have diagonal lines crisscrossing, and then we basically have a square going like that. So for the fourth one, it shows halfway in this outer border here is a seam, and then there's a seam right down these centers on both sides. And then there are seams here in all the triangles. And also in here, down the middle. So instead of doing it down the center, I'm just going to stitch in the ditch right here around the inner block. And then I'm going to do that line, and then I'm going to come over here and do this line. And then, probably hard to see, but I can see it. So I've got like squares here because I'm going around the outer edge, and then I'm doing the inner block. And then it shows us going straight down here. And there. So I think I will decide how I feel when I get to this point. I could do a triangle like that in all of them. I think that's going to be quite hard, but it can be done. And then I think the last block I'll mark up is this one. So we have from each diagonal a line, a seam, a quilting stitch, and then we're also going to stitch right along these seams and these seams. So I'm not going to mark those. I just need those diagonals, which I need to make them a little bit clearer because they're blue. All right, so that's what I'm going to start with, are those four. Turn this over a little bit more, bring this over a little more in the corner, and so if I start out here, I can do that, stitch in the ditch, come over here, stitch in the ditch, and then come all the way around, stitch in the ditch over to here, and then come in and do that. I'm going to start here with a lock. finished that one. Now I'm gonna stitch my way over to this one. And start on my diagonal. I'm gonna come back. It could be better, but I think from a distance it looks good. All right, now I'm going to move over to my next block. And this one was the seam. All right, so I need to come back down. So there we go. There is quilting in that. She does have quilting in the triangles. I don't know that I particularly need that because that's a lot of quilting there. So now I can move on to this block, which is the last block I marked. Work my way back out. Okay, this was diagonals and seams. Getting to the point where I'm moving the camera. There we go. Sorry about that. All right, so I need to come over and get into this seam over here. Actually, I need to do the seams right here. That's it. That did it all. So I think what I will do now is leave it there and come over here and start marking these. So this block has diagonal here and here, and then in each one of the corner blocks it's sewn on the seams here, and then it has these quilting lines in here, which I found the center of this one right here and went from this corner to there and then went 1/4 of an inch out and marked, and that's how I'm doing it. So I will do the rest of these just like that. So I finished this one out. This one is just going to echo the leaves, and I'm going to do the seams. I'm not going to come through my applique. And then this one, I came out 1/4 of an inch from this edge and marked it on all 4 sides, and then came in 1/2 an inch from these seams and marked it like that. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to come up here and work on over and then start quilting, trying not to stop anywhere, and get this all quilted. And then do the same, move from this one to this one without stopping, quilt it, and then same here. All right, I forgot to hit record for quilting these, but they were pretty simple. I did just the same thing that I did over here. Is I came to this corner, I did a diagonal, I came down and went up. I think I came over here, did the diagonal. Oh, I gotta finish that. It's a good thing I came back and looked at it. I didn't do the diagonal there. And then I just started filling in these lines like this. And that's exactly how my needle went. Get over here, and then you can start filling these in and come over. And then once you get done with this, you can come over and just keep, you can do all your petals and then your seams, and then move over here. And I think what I did was I did my half triangles and then went around here and came up and did the little half triangles, came over, and then did my lines in here. So I just wanted to show you. I did forget to hit the record button for quilting needs, but I did get the rest of them. I got these quilted without stopping. It's pretty easy. You can just kind of look ahead and see where you need to go to not stop. Now this block, she did her quilting in the middle of everything, and it's all squares. I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to quilt the squares. I'm going to quilt these 3 inside squares, and then I'm going to move to this outside square, and then I'm going to draw a line right here as if there is a square out there. So I know where I'm quilting, so the only lines I need to draw are right there and here. There, and can I get my hand under there? My arm is probably in your way. Anyway, so all these squares I'm going to quilt and then come out here and quilt these 4. All right, she has quilting inside my applique, which I don't want to do, and she has a square quilted out here. I'm going to stitch in the ditch right here and then come into here and echo quilt this, come out here, and I'm going to echo quilt this, go up the seam, echo quilt back down to here, and keep moving out and do the seams that go to the corners, but echo quilt. I mean, I could echo quilt the whole square, so I actually could come out here and echo quilt here, so you could do that. She just has it going through the applique, and I don't want to go through my applique. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So just to show you real quick, I'm going to do this. All the way around instead of going through my applique. So Dear Jane has like an echo quilt just slightly outside of this star. I don't think I want to do that. I think I want to just quilt, stitch in the ditch here. And then she kind of echoes the star here just slightly, but I think what I'm going to do is just draw a straight line. I'm just kind of finding where the point matches up, and then I'm going to draw a straight line from those points. And then she also has us crossing crisscrossing across the entire block like this. And then just kind of down. So there's a corner right here in this block, and here she's got us coming out. I'm just going to come to the corner like that. So this one would be here, whoops, there. And that would be on all the sides. Stitch in the ditch here. We have a square, basically, that's going to go around here. And that's wrong. I need to go this way. We have lines that are coming down from each of our corner blocks and meeting that square and crisscrossing. So I've got 3 blocks lined up, and so I'm going to now, I've still got my needle down here, I'm going to come up and move over to this block and start working on this block. So I changed bobbin thread, and I just kind of throw some material on the side, so when I do that I can just make sure everything's still doing good. Yep, it looks good. All right, so I need to go back to where I started, or that I ended, and start over, which was right here. All right, so I'm going to turn my quilt so now that I can work this way. All right, there we go. These 3 are finished, which leaves 2 more. So let me get over to here. Stop it there, now I can draw these on. All right, so she has us going from this point to this point. And then the same over here. Oh, I don't have a very good point there. It's interesting what you find out. It's like, I thought I was doing good. And then she goes across these points. And these 4 squares in the corners, and then 2 lines out. So if I did a 1/2 inch and then a 1/2 inch, I would get that. That looks good. All right, there's that one. And then this one down here. So we got one big X, so there are seams here, which I will follow. And then there's a whole bunch of echo quilting. So it's basically kind of like this. like that around. And then she has X's inside each of these. And they aren't really straight lines from one to the other. So, there you go. Get these quilted up. Okay. Oh, I gotta do the diagonal. All right, there we go. Finished quilting row A. I'm gonna put a lock stitch in, and I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna start ironing my lines out. There's my quilting for row A. Is it perfect? Nope. I'm not perfect. And it actually looks like I missed that. So it is a good thing to go back and look. Looks nice, so I'm happy with it. It's a big quilt. Fold it top of each other. There we go. I think it's going to be harder to show off the rows in the middle, but there, that's how I quilted it, making a few modifications here and there, and trying not to stop, moving from one block to the other. One thing I did like about this was each block is isolated, so you're only working with 4.5 inches at a time. You're not trying to maneuver yourself out into this quilt somehow with a quilting design. So there you go. I am going to finish this up and move on to block B, or row B, but that's row A, and that is a start, and it's going to be a much longer video for this one because it is the beginning, and I went through how I set my machine up and everything else. Showed you my systems. I will have all of these systems and everything I use in the description down below. And don't forget that this is based on the EQ8 Dear Jane add-on. I do believe the book, if you buy the book, might have all of this in it, but that is what I'm using for this quilt and for the quilting. And I showed you that at the beginning. All right, whew, it's done. My machine didn't give me any problems, which makes me happy. Thank you, machine, I love you. And hit the subscribe button, notification bell. If you're new to this, I do have a playlist for all of the videos in this if you want to start from the beginning. I am, if I haven't already, going to update the cut list that I use throughout the year so that it's in alphabetical order. If you want to do it in alphabetical order, I will have the cut list in alphabetical order for the blocks, and I will have my video linked if you want to use the link to go to the video for the for that specific block. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you when we do block B. Bye.